Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Covenant Security Solutions Learn at Lunch webinar. Today we have a very exciting speaker, Mr. John Reginaldi. I've known him for a couple of years now. He's 30 years worth of experience, so we can really tap into his knowledge in physical security, emergency preparedness. I mean, he just runs the spectrum. He used to be a detective, ex-police officer here in Maryland, so his expertise really runs the gambit. So without further ado, John, I really appreciate you being here. Happy Election Day, everyone. John, go ahead and do your thing.
Thanks, Margie. Just for everybody's awareness, well, I've got about 30 years in the business through my employment with Baltimore County Police Department, and I've worked with a couple of security companies. I worked in the intelligence community for a while, and now I'm with Maryland Emergency Management Agency. I'm doing this as a volunteer. I'm off today, but this is something that's near and dear to my heart, and I've been involved with everything from emergency management, safety, and security, I guess, ever since the 1970s. But today's briefing is going to be on, is your business preparing for emergencies? And it's going to be geared for small businesses and the mom and pops. Will probably be geared.
We've lost you, John.
Huh? Can you hear me? Marjorie?
We can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, the presentation is going to be geared for small businesses. So I wanted to start off with the resources that I've been using over the years. Of course, the most important resource is my own agency, the Maryland Emergency Management Agency. And if you have any idea, or if you don't have an idea what Maryland Emergency Management Agency is and what we do, NOAA, just go to the website and walk you through the different types of trainings that we offer, everything from mitigation to preparedness to response. One of my areas that I've been involved with was doing vulnerability assessments. I've done them for businesses, for schools, for commercial establishments, retail, even residential. And one of the resources that I turn to a lot is the American Society for Industrial Security. You see that on your screen. Above that is a set of encyclopedias on security. They're called the Protection of Assets Manuals. That is probably the most important resource that business owners can use when they are interested in securing their business. I call them the Bible of security. Down below the American Society for Industrial Security as is, there's the National Crime Prevention Coalition. Of course, InfoGuard is the one that I'm the past president of the Maryland chapter for. They offer a lot of very robust training, and the Maryland
John, unfortunately,
started a mass casualty / physical security special interest group, of which I'm in charge of that one. The National Institute of Standards and Technology for IT issues, National Institute of Justice, U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Probably the one that I turn to the most in my current position is the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And I can't emphasize enough what this agency can provide. There are over 400 classes that they offer. And some of these classes that I tap into a lot through a group that belong to what is known as the National Emergency Response and Rescue Training Center. And what this is, these consortiums are funded through FEMA. And just to give you an idea of some of these consortiums, if you just type in on the internet if you need to do a search, NDPC, and that's the National Domestic Preparedness Consortium. And you've got places that are involved, such as the Center for Domestic Preparedness in Alabama, the National Center for Biological and Research and Training in Louisiana. The one that I tap into a lot is the National Emergency Response and Rescue Training Center. That's in Texas. The Energy Materials Research and Training Center, Security and Emergency Response Training Center, National Counter for Terrorism Operations and Support, and the National Disaster Preparedness Training Center out in Hawaii. And these are just some of the resources that are out there that we tap into for training. And if you're interested in any of these types of trainings, later on in this presentation, we'll talk about your local emergency managers and how you can touch base with them. And I'll give you my contact information later in the briefing. So what we've got the local emergency managers are probably going to be your main point of contact if you're in Maryland. And right now on the screen there are three of the larger municipalities. There's Annapolis, Baltimore City, and Ocean City. So if you're interested in any type of training, I would recommend that you reach out. If you live in Annapolis or Baltimore City or Ocean City, go through those phone numbers on that page. And then if you're outside of those municipalities, then I would recommend going through your different county emergency management agencies, Allegheny, and Arundel, Baltimore, Calvert. The list of all the counties are on the screen in front of you, and their contact phone numbers. Now, some of these local emergency management agencies switch locations and they switch phone numbers. This is, I think, what I have in front of you is the most current phone number and the contact information for these agencies. If you have a contact, getting in touch with anybody, if they by chance don't return a phone call or email, you can contact me and I'll reach out to them on your behalf. But there again, if you're going to take anything away from this, one of the main processes you should take with you is you go through your local emergency management agency first. So the state is divided up into regions through the Maryland Emergency Management Agency. And what we've done is we've divided these regions into 6 regions within Maryland. You have the Western region, Garrett, Allegheny, and Washington, and right now we don't have a representative for that region, but I'm temporarily filling in for that region. And then my region is the national, or the capital region, Frederick, Montgomery, and Prince George's. So my area of outreach is what I am on what is known as a regional liaison officer. I'm the go-between between the local emergency managers and the state, and some of your municipalities in these regions and the state. And we have a regional liaison officer for the central region, southern, lower eastern shore, upper eastern shore, and the southern shore. So there should be 6 of us out there. Right now there's 5 right now, but again, we are known as regional liaison officers. And our job is to act as an outreach unit between the state and your local jurisdiction. And we can do, some of what we do is set up exercises, tabletops, functional full scale exercises. If you're interested in training, we can bring training to the regions. We can assist with your planning if you're working on an operational plan or an emergency management plan or any of your appendixes. We can help design those for you and help you with those. So the slide you see in front of you now is the actual contact, the MEMA contact folks for these regions. Again, the Western region is vacant, and I'm filling in for that, so I'll be your contact for that. Central region, which would be the Baltimore area, Baltimore County, Annapolis and Arundel, Howard County, Carroll County, that would be John Delana. His information is up in front of you. The National Capital Region and the West, my information is there for you. And if you have questions after this broadcast, you're welcome to give me a call at the 443 number, or you can send me an email at john.reginald@maryland.gov. The Upper Eastern Shore would be Bill Hildebrand. Lower Eastern Shore would be Eddie Werkheiser. In Southern Maryland, your southernmost southern counties would be Kelly McGuire. Her information is up on the screen also. The primary concerns for businesses is emergency preparedness. And most of our contacts with the emergencies are basically for fire, power outages, and there's just an assortment of other common incidences. We also help mitigate, respond, and recover from major disasters, and COOP, the continuity of operations. In other words, that means how to keep the business running for its essential functions. One of the things that we have found in the past is if there is not a continuity of operations plan, if a disaster hits, the business stops. And as a result, it can go out of business. So what the COOP plans try to do is at least keep that business up and running until they can get 100% back on their feet. Basically, when we talk about continuity of operations planning, we try to get, there are a number of different plans that are out there, and we emphasize that they're scalable and they're flexible. And basically, small businesses with 4 or 5 employees are more common to Maryland than the major businesses that have over 100. And some of the needs of the small and businesses and the large businesses are similar, and in some cases they're different. But the main thing is any COOP plan can be designed to any size business. And what we try to do when we go into a business, even from the state or your local emergency manager, is try not to reinvent the wheel. Reach out for other businesses that have designed continuity planning. You can network with trade associations, network with your local chamber of commerce. You can also reach out to, again, if you live in Montgomery County or Prince George's County, you can reach out to the local emergency manager, and they might have some ideas for you, actually be able to give you some examples of plans. And what we mostly encounter in Maryland are the common hazards are basically fires, power outages, and nonviolent crimes that are the most frequent. Now, your major incidences like floods and tornadoes and hurricanes, flood, epidemic, terrorist, violent crimes, they're a little bit less frequent, but they're more disruptive. So I want to talk about some of the plannings, the areas that we take into consideration when we start to put together a plan for businesses. We always recommend that you start planning for employees first, and we always try to emphasize the two-way communication. That's very central before and during and after a disaster. And of course, what we have found, even in Maryland Emergency Management Agency, like several years ago when we had the earthquake, our communications went down. Phones, we not only have cell phones, but there's other forms of communication. We recommend that businesses include preparedness information in their weekly or monthly newsletters on their company internet website. They can push out just a weekly reminder on employee emails and other communication tools. One of the small companies I had worked with when I was a police officer had a weekly, a weekly tip. Chuck's Corner it was called, and every Friday the security director, Chuck, I'm not going to give you his last name, but the Chuck would send out maybe a half-a-page explanation on some type of a security tip for the day, and that ranged from everything from internet safety to kids being at home alone, auto theft prevention, robbery prevention, home security, business security, some type of a tip every week. There's just so many different proactive things that can be done. I've even seen some companies provide their workers with wallet-sized cards, which detail how to get company information in an emergency. Again, these are just some of the things that we recommend. On the next slide, planning for employees, creating something as simple as a phone tree. We've seen phone trees work very well in the past, and even with some of the local instances with the smaller companies have worked very well. Company websites, an email where an alert where you can call in and you can receive a recording to communicate with employees during an emergency. And we also assign staff. We recommend to assign staff members who are reasonable for communicating regularly with employees to take on these jobs. In addition, for planning for employees, if we have advanced notice for usually a hurricane or a winter storm, you want to make sure that your employees have time and take necessary precautions to prepare for their families. And in the past is when it comes to strike planning, I had participated in some videos on actually how to cross a picket line, the do's and don'ts. When it comes to planning for a strike, some of the proactive measures that companies can undertake. So the strike is less of a negative impact on the business than it would have been. Disabled employees, there's a number of courses right now. TEACS offers, and a couple courses through FEMA offer courses on managing neighbors and employees with disabilities. You get on the FEMA website, and I can't emphasize enough how much information is on the FEMA website. You can ask some of your employees to work together with the employees that are disabled. You can put together a list of or a gap analysis for the employees that typically know what they need to do or what they have to have done in an emergency. And outreach to those people. One of the things that we recommend, especially in our neighborhoods and communities, that if there is a disabled individual living in the community, we really push the neighbors to reach out to them and look out for them, because what we noticed in Katrina, and that a lot of these disabled folks were left unattended, and that's unfortunately they met an untimely death. Once you have a plan, we always recommend practicing. That's why there's such an emphasis on active shooter exercises, pandemic flu exercises, tabletop exercises. That's where administrators and staff will just sit around the table and give out a scenario, and different individuals around the table will go around and talk about what they would do, what they wouldn't do, what their resources are. You can perform a drill. You can revise a plan based on an incident that you had in the past. That's called lessons learned. And we always recommend that you coordinate plan with other tenants within your facility. And there again, part of what NEMA does and the local emergency managers do in conjunction with each other is we work in conjunction with businesses, with community groups, and putting together exercises and plans. Right now, one of the more popular exercises that we're getting a request for is active shooter, or the active assailant. Then we get into preparation, emergency supplies. Again, this is on the FEMA.gov website. Water. Normally we recommend a gallon of water per day per person. Powered radio. You can go to any hardware store and pick up a battery powered radio. And FEMA has different recommendations on battery operated radios that just are designed for emergencies. Of course, flashlight and batteries is a must. Pretty much everybody nowadays has a first aid kit. And some of us that really, I mean, I never thought of this until I first came on the meeting, was a whistle to call for help. The next slide. Dust filters or masks. You want to, if there's going to be a lot of dust particles near you, want to filter that out. Moist towelettes for sanitation, washing your hands, and other items. Wrench, a little toolkit. Pliers for turning off utilities. Plastic sheeting or duct tape to seal a room off if you need to do that. And these, again, all of these recommendations are on the FEMA and on the NEMA website. Garbage bags and ties for personal sanitation if needed. The weather radio through NOAA automatically alerts for inclement weather. And again, I keep an emergency kit in my vehicles, and especially if you have a company that has a fleet of vehicles, we recommend keeping an emergency kit in each of those vehicles. And again, getting into the more documentation aspect of planning for emergencies, you keep records for your important records. And on just a thumb drive, your bank accounts and your records, any type of shipping and contact list if your business ships and receives. Hopefully, I back up my computer at the end of each week, but sometimes I don't use it every day. If you're working a computer, or if you're doing reports or generating a lot of work on your computer every day, we recommend backing it up at the end of each day. Keeping law enforcement contact information, And all of these documents, we really emphasize keeping them in a waterproof and a fireproof portable container. And if possible, create a second list of documents and keep it at an off-site location. And I would recommend 10 to 20 miles away from where you crew. Lady at a engineering convention that I was asked to do a presentation for, access controls for healthcare facilities, about a month ago. And this one particular lady has a company that will actually come in, and if you have old blueprints, if you have old records, they can scan them for you and create a safe or a storage area where they can keep them safe. A lot of your older educational institutions have tons of these records, and they really don't know what to do with them. And this lady, for a nominal fee, can come in and scan everything. So again, some of the local authorities might not be able to provide information on what is happening immediately. So it's up to you to decide, should I shelter in place or should I leave? We recommend that in any type of emergency, if you can monitor the television or radio or even social media, information sharing process where you can get it immediately and find out exactly what's going on. We even have in the Maryland Emergency Management Agency and in the local emergency management offices throughout Maryland, they actually have their public information person that monitors social media on a regular basis, especially during an emergency or a catastrophic event. And basically, common sense should prevail. Just you just trust your gut. Sheltering in place. The next slide. If you're going to who has the authority to order an evacuation? Establish a chain of command. Is it the owner? Is it someone is it the CEO? You want to have a chain of command who's going to order if there's going to be an evacuation or shelter in place, and make sure you communicate that to the employees. Do you have someone that's actually designated to shut down critical operations and lock the doors? And evacuation protocols. Post your plans in a location where they can be seen, and I would recommend that maybe on a bi-monthly basis, go over that plan with your employees, even if it's sitting them down or sending out an email. Emergency lighting, and most of our newer buildings are already installed. And I worked in an agency where they actually assigned flashlights to everybody to keep at their desks. If you're going to evacuate out of your building, designate an assembly site, usually somewhere near the facility. And in the event that you have to evacuate, somebody should be designated to walk around that room or the facility to make sure everybody has evacuated. And somebody, at least 1 or 2 people, should have a list of all of the employees. So when you do go to that assembly site, you can do a brief roll call to see who is there and hopefully who isn't. If you're going to shelter in place, who's going to decide who's going to make the notification to shelter in place? If you have more than one location, establish a place for each individual building. And if you share a place with other businesses, make the owner and the other tenants aware of that and practice together. If you're going to shelter in place, there are several things that we recommend that you do. If you're instructed with local authorities to take shelter, you do it immediately. Hopefully you would know who was in your building. Count for all workers and visitors and customers during an active shooter or someone to arrive in the shelter, and determine where you're going to shelter if you have to. Sheltering in place, especially in the event of an active shooter, you would want to choose an interior room, such as a break room or conference room. We would recommend that you use a room with as few windows as possible, and if you don't have one, at least cover the windows. Lock doors and vents and turn off all air conditioning and forced air systems. When you also shelter in place, you want to make sure that you have the necessary supplies if you're going to be there for several hours. In your safe room, or if you're sheltering in place, you want to have communication ability to communicate with the outside. You want to have food and water. You want to plan for sanitation. So these are things that you can get off of any website, or if you want to contact me for additional information or your local emergency manager, there are checklists that are available. Fire safety. Do a fire inspection. Make sure that the facility is in compliance with fire codes and regulations. Your local fire department will do these for you on a regular basis. Again, make sure your smoke detectors are working properly, fire extinguishers and the sprinklers are well marked. Fire hoses and fire restricting doors, make sure you have those all up to code. Establish a system of warning for the employees, a process for alerting the fire department, which is basically with all of the 911. Preparing for your business, your COOT plan. You want to take into consideration any kind of medical safety measures. I always recommend taking first aid and CPR training. Keeping emergency contact information up to date. Usually we recommend that every 2 or 3 months you go through that list and you make sure that you have all the right names and numbers and emails and contacts. Take care of, encourage employees to discuss medical conditions that may require support from special care in an emergency. Again, these are all very basic recommendations. Violent attacks, active shooter right now is one of our most requested plans, one of our most requested exercises. For those of you that might not be aware of them, the state of Maryland just brought 3 big agencies together. They brought Maryland Emergency Management Agency, Maryland State Police, and the Maryland Emergency System together, and we put together a document that deals with a multi-agency response to an active shooter. These are some recommendations, and they're just protocols designed for the entire state of Maryland, that if you live in an area where your police and fire and emergency responders would like to take a look at this document, it's free of charge. I can send it out to you. It took us probably about 1.5 years to put this together, but we had representatives from local law enforcement departments in the state, fire departments across the state, the Maryland Police and Correctional Training Commission sent representatives. We had Department of Homeland Security, we had the FBI, we had local emergency managers, we had first responders. We had a task force of nearly 40 people working on this document, and it finally got the seal of approval from the governor's office a month or so back, and I actually nominated that for the governor's award for crime prevention. It won that award this year. The award will be awarded, I think, in the 2nd or 3rd week in December. But the Maryland Active Assailant protocol just came out, and that's a very good document on what agencies can do to take a multi-agency approach to an active shooter. We really encourage that employees discuss personal threats, that's workplace violence or domestic violence issues, discussing safety and security with law enforcement. One of the things that I recommend is doing a vulnerability assessment of your facility. You start with the outer perimeter of property. These are physical assessments. You look at fences, gates, walls, landscaping, lighting, berms, signs. Is the building designed with crime prevention through environmental design applications, CPTED? We look at the building exterior. We look at the doors, locks, windows, screens, alarm systems, CCTV, fire detection, signs, again, lighting and landscaping. What I see in a lot of applications, a business will implement closed-circuit television or implement really good lighting, and then the landscaping becomes so overgrown, it blocks the view, and in some cases provides great concealment for the bad guys. So we take a look at that.
So John, we're really running out of time. So if you're not in the state of Maryland, does each other state have an organization that we can contact?
Yes, yeah. Every state has an emergency management office. They can contact me if they need that information, or they can get on the internet. FEMA is divided into different regions. We in Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia, we're in Region 3. They can contact the local FEMA office, Federal Emergency Management Agency office. But I'll sort of speed things up. I've got this presentation geared for pandemic preparedness, crisis communication plans, everything from recommending employees staying healthy, insurance policies, utility disruptions in Maryland. We're doing a lot of really phenomenal work with Plumber Gas, Electric, Pepco, and our local utilities. And then the facility safety is what I've just talked about. Again, we're really pressed for time. But yeah, they can reach out to FEMA, or they can contact me offline, and I can give them the information.
Well, thank you again so much, John. You've given us a lot of information, things that a lot of organizations might not have really thought about. And again, I really appreciate your time, and we welcome you to the Covenant Security Solutions family. And again, thanks everyone for joining our webinar. Join us next Tuesday after next, November 18th, as we have Dr. Diane Burley from GW University. Thank you all. Have a great